executive meeting. This meeting is a meeting of the school board and public for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business. Is not considered a public community meeting. There will be time for public participation as indicated by the agenda. The meeting site is fully accessible. Any person requiring further accommodation should contact the superintendent at the school corporation's central office. With that, we'll start. Ms. Hutchison, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have roll call. All members are present. Mission statement. If we could have Mrs. Jones read the mission statement.
Lebanon Community School Corporation's challenges everyone every day to reach a new best.
Thank you. We do have several hearings within the meeting. We'll have to open up public hearings within this meeting and then close them. And there'll be comments within each comment period within those. There's also then a public comment period as well for the general items within. So with that, we will go ahead and open the hearing on the lease.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. This lease hearing is in reference to the bonds that will be sold to finance the construction of the new transportation facility and the renovation of the middle school. A portion of these projects will be funded through lease financing, and we have done that in the past, most notably with the recent capital referendum bonds. And these financings are used by school corporations across the state in order to borrow for renovation and construction. The building corporation plans to purchase the real estate on which the new transportation facility will be constructed, as well as a portion of the Lebanon Middle School building at closing for at least the appraised value. The purpose of this hearing today is to allow any member of the community to comment on whether they believe that the lease rental contained in the lease agreement is fair and reasonable. So with that, Mr. Parks, I'll turn it back over to you to hear from any member of the community before we have one resolution within this hearing to take care of.
All right, do we have any comments from the public regarding the lease? Hearing none, we will continue.
All right, then.
On the adoption.
Yes, thank you. So at this time, I would put in front of the board then a resolution authorizing the execution of the lease agreement, which is Exhibit A in your packet. As required by the school leasing statute, after a hearing, the school board must approve the lease and authorize the officers to execute such agreement. This lease is the agreement whereby the school corporation will levy the required property tax to pay these lease payments. The lease payments will be paid to the building corporation and used to pay the bondholders. Without this lease, bondholders will have no assurance that the building corporation will repay the bonds. The lease is the mechanism by which the property tax collections can get to the bondholders. So with that, Mr. Parks, appreciate your consideration of the resolution authorizing the execution of the lease agreement.
Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing execution of lease agreement? Mrs. Hutchison. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Clauser? Was that Clauser or? Yep. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will go ahead and close that hearing, and we will open a new additional appropriations hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. The second hearing of the evening deals with the dollars associated with the bond sale. They are, of course, dollars that are not originally appropriated in the school corporation's budget, and as a result of selling these bonds during the calendar year, we do need to hold a hearing authorizing the expenditure of these funds. So at this time, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Parks, to hear from any member of the community that wishes to comment on this additional appropriation.
Do we have anybody from the public wishing to comment on the additional appropriations? Hearing none, we'll move on to resolutions.
Three of them, I believe four actually for this hearing. The first is the resolution authorizing the additional appropriation. Essentially what I just stated there, the resolution that is Exhibit B in your packet will authorize the school corporation to spend these proceeds from this bond sale.
Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution for additional appropriation, Exhibit B? Mrs. Jones? Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hendricks? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, resolution reapproving building corp.
Yes, Exhibit C, in order for the Building Corporation, which is a not-for-profit Indiana corporation, to issue these tax-exempt bonds, the IRS does require that the school board approve the Building Corporation and authorize it to issue these tax-exempt bonds on our behalf.
Do we have a motion reapproving the building corporation? Resolution.
I'll move.
Mr. Clauser? Do we have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Hutchison? Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Third,
Yep. Exhibit D is resolution assigning the construction bids and contracts to the Building Corporation once received. So this resolution will allow us to accept bids to perform the work on the behalf of the Building Corporation. And when those bids are presented to us, we will approve those bids, and then ultimately the contracts will be executed on the behalf of the Building Corporation. So this resolution allows us to put the contracts in the name of the Building Corporation with Lebanon Community School Corporation as the lessee.
do we have a motion to adopt this resolution? Mrs. Jones? Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hendricks? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Last one
Final.
is the resolution approving the 8th supplement to Master Continuing Disclosure Undertaking and issuing bonds. So the Securities and Exchange Commission requires the school corporation enter into an 8th supplement to Master Continuing Disclosure Undertaking before it issues bonds. The school corporation has previously entered into this type of agreement, and this agreement requires the school corporation to agree to timely provide certain financial information to Emma, recording our execution of debt.
All right. Do we have a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll move to adopt.
Mr. Clauser? Do we have a second? Ms. Hutchison? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will close this hearing and move on to another back to our public meeting on the tentative agreement master teacher contract.
That would be me.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Appreciate it. This is a required meeting in public to discuss tentative agreement with Lebanon Classroom Teachers Association and Lebanon School Corporation. Want to take a moment and thank Susie Boyette, President of LCTA, and members of her team for a productive process. Mr. Van Tilburg, high school teacher, member of that team, is with us this evening as well. If the board would have any questions related to the master contract. We're required in this meeting to provide some summary to the public and allow public comment, if there are any, on the terms of the contract. So I just hit some of the highlights of this for the board and the community this evening. This is a 2-year agreement. There is an agreement in the tentative agreement that if we are to change our student enrollment number at 75 or greater, either 75 or greater lower in enrollment, or 75 or greater higher in enrollment, that we would reopen the contract in the second year on compensation items only as part of this contract. This contract does rely on takes away the current agreement, which was a flat dollar amount that was calculated on a point system, and adopts a salary table. It'll be replaced by a salary table for our teachers. Teachers receiving effective or highly effective evaluation rating will be eligible for compensation increases. The steps on both years of the contract in the table increase by $1,600 as teachers would progress through that table. In year one, it provides a one-time base salary increase of $3,700. And then teachers will be awarded additional funds depending on their years of service in Lebanon schools. So that would be north of that number for some of our teachers, depending on the years that they have taught in our corporation. This contract moves the starting salary for beginning teachers with 0 years' experience to $50,000. That is the same in year one. Then you'll see the adjustments again in 24, 25, and then you'll see in year two of this contract, we'll add $500 to the table, and then you have the $1,600 increase as part of compensation. We've also addressed extracurricular stipends in this contract, allowing raises in each of those, and also thank Mr. Dennis as well as our building administration doing a deep dive into our ECA table and kind of right-sizing it, if you will, to the types of positions that we do currently employ. So we've adjusted some numbers of assistant coaches, for example, some positions that maybe hadn't been traditionally filled over recent years. So kind of did some housework, if you will, on the ECA schedule. Also changed the ECA schedule model, whereas it's an index amount now based on the highest ECA stipend. This contract increases the board's contribution to teachers' health insurance premiums by the amount of 5%. It increases the amount that the corporation will, the term we typically use is buy back unused leave days above 60 that teachers would accumulate. Increases the amount that we would buy those back, and that's placed in what's called a VEBA account, which is a account that will help teachers in retirement pay health insurance premiums or health-related expenses. This contract also includes an attendance incentive, with teachers having perfect attendance in a semester are able to earn a certain dollar amount, and then if they miss one day, they are also able to earn another dollar amount in this agreement. We did not have a dollar amount in previous contracts about elementary teachers who would cover another teacher's class if we're not able to find substitute teacher coverage. So this does include that. It also increases the amount for class coverage across all grades. See if there's anything else. Oh, we also added here at the end some workman's compensation language. Obviously, it's something that you have to follow as part of the law anyway, but it did clarify whether or not teachers would be charged days against their personal days or unpaid days through that process. So it clarifies that for our teachers as well. That is the highlights of the contract. Again, we're pleased to bring this to the board for your comments and consideration. We have scheduled a special meeting on November 8th to recommend ratification of the contract, but this is an opportunity for the community to make any comments they may have.
Do we open that up now for the
Yes.
community? Yes. If there's anybody from the committee wishing to speak on behalf of this. Hearing none. I just want to say thank you to Mr. Dennis and LCTA for all working together to come up with rewriting it, right?
Yes.
And I think we're on charging new territory and on good projection here.
Yes. I would only mention in closing that one of the points that we drove home during our referendum campaign and operating referendum campaign was to be able to help make our teachers' salary scale or table competitive. I believe this accomplishes that, certainly a step in that direction. It's because of the community that's allowing us to bring this package to our teachers. It's difficult when you look at the language. I think Mr. Van Tilburg would agree. When you look at the language in the contract, it's a little bit difficult to calculate what your raise is going to be. To give even thanks again to Mr. Dennis and his team, each teacher, upon hopeful ratification of the board of this contract, the Business Services Office will be providing every teacher a one-page summary of their current salary, the amount of their increase, what that will mean for each individual teacher, because it can be a little difficult when you have to put it in legalese in the contract to be able to say, well, how much does this mean for me? You know, so every teacher will receive a personalized account of what this means in their case. So.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Any other comments from the board members? Next, we have approval of minutes for the September 19th regular meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll motion.
Mr. Hendricks, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Clauser? A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll have certify executive content for the September 19th exec session for collective bargaining, initiation of litigation or litigation as against, that is either pending, and to discuss job performances. Do we have a motion to adopt this or certify this executive content? Mrs. Hutchison, do we have a second? Mrs. Jones. Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, superintendent's announcements and celebrations. Dr. Millman.
Thank you. I'd like to I'm gonna pull up a text here. I'm not texting outside the meeting. I've got the names that were shared with me. I'd remember two of the three. We were very pleased to host Dr. Katie Jenner, Secretary of Education for the state of Indiana, to Lebanon schools today. Lexi's probably working feverishly on some photo arrays to share on social media as we speak right now. Dr. Jenner has been very impressed with our work-based learning program here at Lebanon Schools. We spent time with Mr. Meyer, Mrs. Scott, Mrs. Dennis, and three of our students, Brianna Page, Mason Crew, and Maddie Garvin, who they were the stars of the show, of course. In the meeting today, Dr. Jenner learned about their experiences, and they have invited us now to be part of a cadre of districts in the state to help look at the high school diploma revamp, as well as how that's going to play into workplace learning. And I eagerly agreed to participate in that, to be part of that discussion. So I'm very excited, and you'll see some more pictures and things around that. I want to congratulate our Tiger Pride Marching Pride for advancing to the semi-state this weekend at Pike High School. This is the first time back in ISMA competition for our marching band, and they've done an outstanding job. The students work extremely hard, so congratulations to them. Also want to congratulate Jack Farrell and Reese Guyman for advancing to the regional tennis. Recently, they got beat out by a great Munster team in the finals of the regional, but it was great for them to represent us at the regional level, so congratulations to them. Wanted to remind the school board that tomorrow evening in this space, we will be hosting our first session of our Tiger Community Ambassadors. We have 12 community members representing parents and community members and business leaders in the district to learn about the operations of the school, and we're excited to share that with them. You have a calendar board in your various packets. You're welcome to attend any or all of those. So excited to share that with our community and give you feedback on that. Wanted to share with you another congratulations from IHSAA and the officials. We had a freshman leader, William Shelton, who showed exemplary behavior on the JV football field this past weekend, and there's quite a nice write-up in your board packet to read about that. Leaders don't have to be seniors. Leaders can be freshmen, and I just wanted to share that great bit with you, that he is representing us well in that. I put in the board packet the cross-country team results. They had a great showing this year. It's a buzzsaw of a sectional in cross-country to run into, and they definitely showed well for us. Also shared in the board packet, Mr. Rick Ellis. This is his last year on the microphone at the football games. Had a very nice send-off to him at the recent football game. He was very touched by that, so I shared with the board his message to the athletic department and the school in your packets. And the last thing is to wish everyone a fall break, a great restful fall break after they work hard in school 3 more days. And then we'll all enjoy that time off. That's all I have this evening.
All right. On to informational items. Dr. Millman.
Yes, in the first item, we have several policy updates in the first reading for you this evening. I did want to touch on a few of them just briefly. One, in search and seizure, you might recall we've just recently adopted that one. This is just to add vape devices pens of that nature in the list of things that can be confiscated as part of those search and seizure. Public complaints and concerns adds new legislation around materials such as books, etc., and we have updated our forms and guidelines as well. So that is just bringing that to your attention. The anti-harassment policy is just to make a little bit clearer in the policy the separation between anti-harassment and the bullying policy. Bullying is under harassment, but it is a separate policy. So in several locations, it just updates that separation and then also cleans up some of the language and technical language as well. You'll see a few policies that are board related. Again, those are mostly technical corrections. So if anyone sees anything related to the board, we're not changing your eligibility to serve. We're not changing anything around what's a requirement as a board member of the district. These are really mostly technical corrections if anyone's following along at home on the agenda.
A lot of state code being.
A lot of state
quoted.
code being inserted. Sometimes our friends at Neola like to quote the law in our policy. Sometimes I bring that to the board. Sometimes I decline that because honestly, we're always required to follow the law. So we don't always need to put it in policy. However, sometimes it is helpful if it's in our policy because that's where our patrons go. Our patrons don't go to the Indiana General Assembly code book online to look about what's supposed to happen in schools. They go to our policy manual. So there are times where I think it's helpful, and I try to glean that as well as I can for you all. Happy to answer any questions you might have about policy.
Any questions? All right. Next is a renovation update.
Yes, we have a couple of things to share with you this evening, and Mr. Chris Kingery from Gibraltar Design is with us this evening, and as he's making his way to the podium, I will give you a little bit of an update on transportation. We spent the day, we being Mr. Dennis and I and Becky Nichols, spent the day, half a day at least, at Schmidt Associates offices last week, doing what they call a room-by-room analysis of the final designs of transportation. This is an opportunity for them to say to us, this is what we heard you say, is that correct? And an opportunity for us to say, did you hear us say this? So we can really kind of dot those I's and cross those T's. We all know in construction there's unforeseen challenges that are going to happen, but it's a very valuable experience, and so we're excited to bring that to you. We just scheduled our final design meeting at their offices for the middle school on December 12th, so that tells you how close we're getting to final renderings and final designs of the middle school, so we're very close on that as well. I have asked Schmidt to come to the board meeting in November, the regular meeting, to show some of the pictures and renderings of transportation. They'll be ready for that at that time. We're really, really excited to show you that transformation. As you know, you've seen the before pictures. The after pictures are going to be great. So wanted to share that with the board this evening.
Moving along quickly.
Yeah, Mr. Kingery.
Pleasure to be with you. Just as exciting as Transportation Middle School tonight is about playgrounds. When you do a district-wide initiative like you are doing, sometimes playgrounds can be an afterthought. And I want you to know that we've been just as intentional about the playground planning as we were about the elementary learning planning. So if you remember, we gathered with the principals in a leadership summit, I believe it was in 2021, and started the process of having that common language about what is working in the classrooms, what does teaching look like, what does learning look like, to come to this common ground and create that benchmark. We did the same thing with playgrounds. And so pleased to share the update on the process with you this evening. We're going to go over the timeline, what we created together as a leadership group with the guiding principles, the zones of play, and then we have some playground site plans, just to make sure that you are familiar with where we're going on the sites. Then also the designs itself to be able to share with you, and then talk about next steps. So our time frame, we started in June, just that initial conversation and planning of creating that common agreement about what should happen on playgrounds, which I will show you. Then we moved into the playground partner selection, and it was going through equipment, went through multiple local vendors for playground equipment, but also went as detailed as calling principals that had this equipment, talked about the pre, the during, and even the post about how the equipment is working. So detailed, in fact, that I went down a slide at Crossroads Elementary in Brownsburg, and it was able to sustain my body frame. So ended up finding good equipment. And then we ended up going into August, and we're able to sit down with the principals, do a preliminary design review. Again, what Dr. Millman said was, this is what we would like to share. We think we heard you, and then also get some feedback from the principals. Through the month of September, we were making sure that we were aligning scope and budget to make sure that we weren't over planning, and whatever was going to happen in the playgrounds could happen at all the playgrounds. And then that final color selection happened just within the last 2 weeks in October that we'll share with you. What's coming next, spring 2024, would be the playground installation for Harney, for Perryworth, and also Stokes. Included in this and why it's coming in together is the principals were pretty adamant that they wanted that same theme that we had in the very beginning, no matter your address, same experience, same opportunity, wanted that to happen on the playgrounds as well. And so whatever's happening at the 3, they wanted to happen also at the new elementary. And you'll see that as we move forward. But the nice thing about the procurement process is being able to finalize agreements to have all 4 playgrounds purchased and procured at the same time. And then when the new Central Elementary is ready for the playground, they're going to store that at no cost until it's time to install that equipment, and then be able to apply the same concept as at the other 3 schools. So, and just some considerations on the side, the principal involvement part, the cooperative purchasing with that transparent pricing, so you're not negotiating on a price, it's just same set price for the equipment through that Sourcewell agreement, and then also that same opportunity and experiences no matter what your home address is. So I want to talk about the guiding principles that we collectively came together with the elementary principals. What was important was the zoned for varied play and energy levels. You think about the kids that just want to relax and be in kind of a quiet area on the playground, and then also the kids that want to play athletics, the kids that want to play in group and just play chase. All those different factors going into consideration that you want a playground that can meet the needs for all students. Then also that diverse type of play. So you think about the cognitive, the social, the problem solving, think about kids just making up their own games, all of that being able to happen on one site. And then also fostering student interaction. We know that student interaction is important, but also the size of the group. So an opportunity for kids to work in very small groups, but also in large groups on the playground as well. The other big piece was inclusivity and accessibility, making sure that the playgrounds were accessible to all students, and you'll see that in the designs that we're bringing forward. And then finally, encouraging creativity and we said appropriate risk-taking. So we want kids to be able to take risk on the playground safely and have that where they weren't able to get all the way across the first time, but then when they were in 2nd grade, they were able to do that. So we have, that was a guiding principle for us as well. When we talk about the different zones, you see the hard surface zone. It's where you would have, just like your structured basketball, you would have your gaga pits, you would have Foursquare, all those different items on that. And then also the soft surface zone. So that's like with the inclusive play, to be able to have equipment, swings, all of that in a soft zone place where if kids were to fall down, they wouldn't be injured. And then finally, that open field zone was very important to the principals to be able to have just that soccer, that kickball, whatever they want to do in that open grass area and play chase. The last piece of this, just some other things. ADA compliant became prevalent as something that was important. Also shade areas as well, to be able to have, you know, and especially in the Central Elementary, it's going to take a little while for those trees to get mature, but being able to have shade structures on there for kids that want to be able to stay out of the shade is important. So want to just familiarize the Harney site. The hard and soft play, important that they come together and are close just from that sight lines and supervision. If you think about when you have, and we'll talk about it later with Hattie B. Stokes, when you have a soft play that's very far away from the hard play, it makes it a little bit harder for teachers because they have to cover all those different zones, so bringing that together. But also maximizing the existing hard play that will be at Harney so that we're not taking up too much of that grassy area, that open grass area that's existing on Harney was important. Hattie B. Stokes, you can see where the existing playground is on the right side of this. We're proposing moving it over to the left side of the building because getting it in close proximity to the hard play area. Again, you can see some of the challenges now where that sight line is on one side of the building, and then you have kids also playing on the hard top on the other side of the building, and then you have teachers that are stretched thin being able to supervise all of that. So moving that future soft play over to the hard play area, and then also keeping some components of the existing play area as well. Perryworth Elementary, opportunity for a reset here, and so you can see where the hard play and the soft play, where we have that placed on site, but also being able to play off a grassy play area as well. And then the new Central Elementary, you can see where that hard play and soft play right next to each other behind the building, and then that opportunity for a very large open green grassy area as well. Are you ready to see the renderings? Daggone it, I was waiting for like this big reveal and it was gonna wow you. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about some of the components that were important to the principals through our conversation. Obviously, you can see, let's start with the swing area. You can see the ADA swings, and the idea is that we have them separated also so you can have a buddy swing right next to the ADA swing. And what's hard to see on the very far end was a friendship swing, which is a new type of swing where you can have two kids facing each other on a swing and be able to interact as well face to face, just creating more interaction. Also, let's start with the outside pieces. Let's see if I'll follow with the cursor. I think I can on this screen closer to Mr. Dennis. You can see in this far right of this rendering, this is a Weesaw. So you think about a seesaw that some of us grew up playing on, but with this opportunity is a Weesaw, and it's also ADA compliant. So you would be able to have a child that can be strapped in there to be able to be with their friends as well. What you see next to it is a Mobius climber. So it is appropriate for ages 5 all the way to ages 12. So you can think about the risk taking, but also falling down onto a soft surface with a height that is resistant to getting injured. But they would be able to climb that structure, or there's places for them to just get underneath the structure and just use it as like a fort. You also see these small pieces of equipment that are meant for just 2 or 3 people to be on spinners that they want to just kind of separate from and not be around a big group, but it's off to the side. And then also included, you can see the bench areas on both sides of the playground, along with the shaded structure over the large play structure as well. This next rendering just gives you a different angle, but it's meant to show you the mass, of the large play structure. It's one of those that if you were a kid that you pretended the floor was lava, I picture a kid getting on this play structure and playing for 25 minutes without touching the ground. So many different ways to pass through the structure, but also it is ADA compliant. So there is a ramp structure that allows a wheelchair to get onto the surface area. You can also see this piece of equipment that looks like almost like a booth at a restaurant. That is meant, it's a shaker, so the opportunity for kids to just sit there, play card games, read, whatever, but it also is meant to create some movement as well for kids to get on there. Also is ADA compliant as well. And then here is another angle at the other side, just to show you the complexity and the different opportunities for kids to move throughout this entire play structure. We feel confident that there is something for every child on this playground, and that is the goal. So moving to next steps, so Gibraltar Design and Meyer Agent will continue to coordinate with the contractors on the playground site preparation. So certainly some things that need to happen below the surface to prep. What you see, and sorry I kind of blew past this soft surface is a poured in place. And so this is a structure that's meant for kids. It has a little bit of bounce, kids can fall, but also it is very low to no maintenance for staff, so it's not like they're replenishing it with mulch. It is an opportunity to create something also with the design. You can see the dimensions to just create some fun places for kids to, I picture a tag game of saying you can, base is a blue circle, and so you see kids going from blue circle to blue circle. If you want, I will come back and teach kids how to play on this because I've been thinking about this playground for quite some time. Back to also next steps, the playground equipment procurement. Obviously, if you guys have witnessed in the last 2 years, there's lead times on equipment. So being able to finalize this purchase agreement so that they can begin the process of making the equipment exactly as you see here, but also applied at all 4 schools. When the installation, why does it not happen until the spring? There is a certain temperature component that it needs to happen for pour in place. So it has to be above 40 degrees for multiple days before they can do pour in place, which is why you're looking at spring for Perryworth and Harney, and then Stokes as well. And then next steps also would be that Sourcewell contract, which is that cooperative purchasing for the playground surface, and then also install agreement for the equipment.
I think it looks great.
Looks great.
But you actually might have to wait until like May or June, Indiana weather.
Yes, definitely.
But no, I think it looks great.
Yeah, pretty exciting to see this happening at every single school, and that was not pushed on the principals. That was a principal decision. They wanted to design this together, and to be honest, my first thought was, oh no. I think of people in my life and how hard it would be for them to come to a common agreement on color, even in my own household with my 3 daughters and my wife. It was a fantastic process, and the end result, you can see, collective voice in all the principals. There's even a little bit of Dr. Millman, a little bit of Mr. Dennis in this as well. Yes, yeah, that's right. Just a little bit of a nudge, but I do love the end product. I think it's going to be something that is going to show very well.
Yeah, I appreciate the ADA equipment, just like our Memorial Park just redid all of their equipment to make it so all kids can play, so that's wonderful.
Good. Not included in this, is included in this, but not seen today. It's on the hard surface. It also includes new basketball goals. It also, and a variation in size of lower goal, and then also 10 foot. It includes Gaga ball, and then also painting of 4 square and some other items on that hard play surface that will give kids more options to play.
Those are the staples. The metal slides that you burn yourself going down aren't anywhere to be seen. Yeah.
I promise you that comes across every time. They're like, why are we worried about the color of the slide? I remember, I still have burns from going down the metal.
Yeah, the rusty pipes. Thank you very much.
Yes,
It's gonna be excellent.
my pleasure.
Next, we have consent agenda, staff matters.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Under item 15A on our classified staff this evening, I'm recommending new hires, numbers 265 through, I lost my place, 275. Thank you. Resignations numbers 276 through 281, and 1 termination, number 282. Under our certified this evening, 2 items. Number 91, maternity leave replacement for maternity leave, and number 92, homeschool liaison for Harney Elementary. Under 15C, ECA, recommending new hires 255 through 262, and resignations 263 and 264.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve classified certified ECA staff as noted today?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Hendricks, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Clauser. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have business matters consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. As always, in this month's board report, you do get our year-over-year, month-by-month, as well as the summary sheets for our construction projects that we have ongoing. Prior to reading the claims, happy to answer any questions that there may be over this month's financials.
Nope. Continue to see increase in the staff numbers, or the large increase
Yes.
between last year and this year, yeah, so.
With that being said, then, I would ask for approval of our claims. First of all, this would be 2 payrolls. September 29th and October 13th in the amount of $2,081,635.35, and claims for payment numbers 58597 through 58777 in the amount of $6,013,495.45, for a total for this time period of $8,095,130.80. Appreciate it, Mr. Parks.
Do we have a motion to approve claims and payrolls as stated? Ms. Jones, do we have a second? Ms. Hutchison? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Comments from the public? Do we have? Seeing none, everybody signed up. We'll move on to action items. Action item A, request resolution approval. for
Yes.
Various items.
Yeah.
Several various.
Various items that I think we will adopt all together.
I was
as
hopeful that
one.
we could, yes?
Yes.
Yes. So this is in relationship to the 2024 budget, and we have reached the culmination of school board approval for this budget. As you recall, at last month's meeting, we had a hearing on the advertised budget. At that point, from any feedback at that hearing, you then move to what we would propose the school board to adopt this evening. I'd like to say to the board that in between last month and this month, our AV was certified by Boone County, and I say that to mean there was one change that I made for the adopted budget. We had a rather large payment put in place for the lease hearing that we held earlier on this evening, and as I mentioned at the budget informational session back in August, you often put in large numbers in there when you don't know what your AV is. Now that we know what the AV is, I have reduced that payment down, and that would be the only change would be in the payment in the debt service fund. And so with that, the three things that we would be asking for board approval of tonight would be the capital projects plan, the bus replacement plan, and then really the Form 4, which is the appropriations and tax rates, or the ordinance and resolution for appropriations and tax rates. So as Mr. Parks stated, I think we can do all these three at once because they all do coincide with the exact same budget. So with that being said, I suppose asking for approval of the 2024 budget.
With that, do we have a motion to approve the 2024 budget?
I'll move
As
to
noted.
approve.
Mr. Clauser? Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Jones? Do we have any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is approval of change orders.
Yep. I think first time doing this this month this way, and so we do have essentially 4 change orders this month. 3 of them belong to Meyer Najum to take on basically reimbursable expenditures, but that, of course, then would be subtracted from the global budget, so that's a net zero change to the overall project budget. And then due to a scope reduction, local utility not requiring a meter compartment, we did receive a $1,200 credit from Eckhart, which is our electrical supplier at the new Central Elementary. So request the approval of these 4 change orders for these contracts, please.
Good change orders. Do we have a motion to approve these change orders as stated?
I'll motion.
Mr. Hendricks, do we have a second? Mrs. Hutchison. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is request approval of accounts payable. Mr. Dennis.
Really spurred on by the key systems specifically for efficiency. Bring to the board tonight request for approval of an engagement with KeyBank to handle what's known as AP automation, or accounts payable automation, and essentially it digitizes our invoices. Right now we receive all of our invoices via paper. There are a few vendors that have switched to emailing them, but our process then would be to hit print on that and then turn that into paper, whereas this service would essentially collect all of our invoices either by email or PO box if a vendor was unwilling to email them. And the AI, the artificial intelligence aspect of this, then would image the invoice and begin to create the method by which we would pay. So any PO number, the vendor remit address. I think the most important thing is it really creates a workflow, a streamlined workflow. So as we would receive the invoice, if it was a buildings and grounds invoice, for example, we can immediately kick that to our office manager over there to ensure that that service had in fact been performed prior to paying that. Currently, that's done through inter-office mail. We would literally place it in an invoice. Our courier would pick it up, deliver it over there, and we'd get it back in 2 days. Now it can be bounced back and forth via this electronic platform. It really streamlines this position, promotes organization, and quite frankly, the preparation of our payments to vendors in a more timely manner. So. There is an onboarding fee of $3,500, and they estimate an annual fee. I say estimate because it's a per invoice charge of roughly $3,000. So $6,500 roughly in the first year, and then an ongoing fee of $3,000. I would contend that comes back in efficiencies in working hours. So.
We can get rid of the carrier pigeons too, right? So,
Yes.
I think this is a great option
It is.
for us. I do have one question. You mentioned being able just to hit send and send it off to grounds for approval. Is that something that's done with an online portal that we're using from the bank, or is that where she's downloading images, sending it via email still to that department, or is it?
So as we saw our demo, it's an online software, and you create workflow. So as they onboard us, and it's going to take 2-3 months to do this, we would identify our representatives in each department. And as Brittany receives these in my office, she would know by looking at it whether the PO number or just she's familiar with that vendor because she's done it. She would know whether to kick it over to buildings and grounds, or quite frankly, some of them belong to the high school. So we'll have to assign folks at each school that are in charge of the workflow to verify that the good, the service, whatever it may be, was in fact rendered and done in that way. Was that your question?
That's exactly.
Okay.
So eventually then, as those decisions are made, through the first 6 months or whatever, is it then the option for Key Bank to be able to kick those directly, or not necessarily, to kick them directly to those departments so it skips the step of Brittany having? So if it's the same vendor all the time, can it just be directed to them? I'm just.
Yeah, it was not presented to me in that manner. It was such that there was a decision that needs to be made by a master user, in this case Brittany. However, I may have missed something, or certainly can ask if there is a way, as this AI maybe understands, that Tom's grass seed is always kicked to buildings and grounds, that maybe that step could be skipped at that point. But ultimately, though, it would always then come back to Brittany for final verification, I suppose. So perhaps.
Great savings, great time savings.
excellent. Do we have a motion then to approve the automation agreement with Key Bank?
I'll motion.
Mr. Jones. Do we have a second?
A second.
Mr. Clouser. Motion and second. Any further discussion?
I just can't believe we haven't had this up until now. It's kind of welcome to the 21st century.
But
From my financial background, it is fairly new. So it's not like we're too far behind.
I work in a nonprofit and we have this, so I'm just surprised.
yeah. There's a lot of government entities I know of locally that don't have this yet. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a request of cooperative purchase for playgrounds equipment.
So obviously, Mr. Kingery was just here explaining this, and so now is, how are we going to actually procure this? So obviously, these playgrounds are a large asset for the district, one in which our purchasing policy would usually kick in the form of quotes. In this case, they'll bids, and this is a very This is a large asset over the 4 buildings. As you all likely know, we are a member of CIESC, and they feature a purchasing wing or a cooperative wing where basically they collect bids from multiple vendors and they assign specific contracts, and those vendors agree to provide their stated discount to anyone who wants to purchase that product. CIESC does not do playgrounds, though. And so there is another governmental purchasing cooperative by the name of Sourcewell that we are a member of, and this particular vendor, Landscape Structures, did submit bids, and we do have a board policy that states exactly what I bring to the board when I propose a cooperative purchase, and that is a separate folder in your background notes tonight. Things like, what did the RFP look like when Sourcewell was looking for this type of equipment? How many different vendors did they evaluate? How did they rank these vendors? All of that is in there, and the pricing. And so ultimately what this culminates, this action item culminates in tonight is essentially me requesting your permission to issue a purchase order. All right, since we didn't receive bids, we received a quote from this vendor. The vendor does specify the Sourcewell discount, which is almost $30,000 per school as a result of being a member of Sourcewell. But as Mr. Kingery said, each playground is identical. Therefore, each playground will come to a total dollar amount of $266,150.94, and ultimately then the total purchase order that I would then issue upon receiving your permission, of course, would be for $1,074,008.20. That's that number, that 266 number times 4. I do also want to specify to the board that there are 4 components to these playgrounds. So this is the equipment. This is literally just the equipment that you saw in that rendering. As Mr. Kingery mentioned, there is site preparation that needs to take place, under drains, things like stone, things like that a site contractor would do. Then the poured in place surface, that soft surface that he was talking that had some spring to it, and then the installation of this equipment. So there are 4 components to this. Due to the long lead nature of playground equipment, that's why we're bringing just this tonight. But there will effectively be 3 more components for each playground. So all of this is within budget. In fact, this was under budget, quite frankly, for what we had planned for these. So that was a pleasant surprise. The Sourcewell discount obviously was a $120,000 discount, was a fantastic result at that point. So a little bit of a different procurement strategy here. I did want to take the time to take the board through that and what I provided to the board as backup for this cooperative purchase. This was a competitive procurement. It was just a long time ago, I think 2021, when LSI submitted to Sourcewell, but yet it's still competitive. So I just didn't want to say that. So with that being said, happy to answer any questions about what exactly I'm asking for your permission for right now, what exactly we're buying with this right now, but ultimately asking you for your permission to issue this PO to LSI to buy this equipment.
Very similar to other purchases for the buildings.
That's how we
that
do buses.
Yeah.
This is exactly how we do buses.
Well, but beyond that, even procuring the materials early, much like the steel
Oh,
we did.
certainly. The mechanical
HVAC,
equipment,
Mechanical
yes.
equipment, yeah.
Yes.
So do we have a motion to approve the purchase of the playground equipment at the elementary schools? Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hendricks, any discussion? It's just going to be nice that all 4 schools are going to have identical opportunities, identical equipment. It's excellent. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is a request approval of corporation credit card.
Yes, simply asking for the board's permission for a credit card for Mr. Rodoball, our new assistant principal at the high school. $2,500 limit, just like the other assistant principals at the high school.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll motion.
Mrs. Jones, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Clauser. A motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is a request approval of an Inwell agreement. Dr. Millman.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Before you is request to approve the agreement with Inwell for mental health services for us through June 30th of 2024. There was some discussion previous meeting on this topic as well. I've placed in your background notes some data Lynette Clark's with us here this evening as well to, if you need to answer any questions from her seat. But it does share some data with you regarding the FTE assigned throughout the district and at each building, the number of crisis assessments that have been performed to date this school year, services for students who do not have ability to pay through insurance or other means, and also at no cost then to the district as well. This is discussed in the agreement. So we're, I guess, at about the quarter pole of the school year, so you can kind of extrapolate from that the scope of services over the course of a school year. So we were able to pull some of those. Thank you for pulling that data together so quickly for us, Lynette. We appreciate that. And with that, I just request approval of the agreement through June 30th of 2024.
Last month, we voted for increase. This is really
A little bit retroactive.
retroactive.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Adopting the actual
Yep,
agreement
yep.
itself. Do I have a motion to approve the agreement with Inwell?
All motion.
Mr. Hendricks, do we have a second? What you said. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No, this was one that we talked about
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
month. I mean, I think having some additional information was helpful for me. Obviously, I think this is something that can't be understated how important it is.
Right.
So, I mean, always looking to improve in any way we can. So if there's anything that we can improve on, I think we continue to look forward. But overall,
We continually meet. We meet at least twice a year with Inwell, go over this data, trends, lament a little bit, to be honest with you, about staffing challenges in this area. Is a struggle both in K-12 as well as in Inwell's world to staff up in this area. You'll see some of the numbers discouraging on one hand, encouraging that we're able to give some supports for some kiddos, but yeah, we have a lot of families and students in need for sure.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is second reading of policy updates.
Yes, that's one that Mr. Martin needed to kind of get through for his world in our nurses services. For a hard time, it's a head lice policy, and we asked any questions or talked about it last time, but we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Do we have a motion to adopt this updated policy?
I'll move to adopt.
Mr. Clauser, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hendricks. Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is a request approval of BCHD donation.
Yes, you'll have in your packet the donation. We're very, very grateful for this donation from the health department, AEDs and support for our school clinics. We'll get with approval of the board. I've asked Ms. Britt Buis to get some photos and some recognition publicly from the health department for this. Is over $10,000 worth of equipment that could be life-saving and for our staff, visitors, students, and also needed support for our students who need it in the clinic with the equipment you see there. So cannot overstate our gratitude to the health department for this donation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Great partnership.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to approve this donation from the health department?
Motion.
Mr. Jones, do we have a second?
Second.
Who was that? Hendrick? Oh, Clauser. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is a approval of Elks donation.
Yes, our friends at the Elks, they call up Mr. Martin at least 2 or 3 times a year to check in to see where we're at on funds to help our families who may be behind in their school lunch funds. And so this would go toward that. So again, just grateful to the community for their support of our students and families. So happy to bring this to you for your approval and a donation of $1,500 towards that fund.
Do we have a motion to approve this donation from the Elks? Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hendricks. We have a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is approval of the 2024-25 district calendar.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Parks. Last time, we brought a draft to the board, and there was quite a bit of discussion, and then we also took some of those points that were made at the board meeting and sent out another request for comment to all staff in the district, and did receive some comments and some feedback. So the calendar that we're recommending this evening is not the same calendar draft that you saw at the last meeting, and that's heartening to me because that's how this process is supposed to work, right, through feedback. So this does move the start date for both staff and students a bit later. Staff would start on August 1st. Students would start on August 6th. That helps with some of that anxiety around those earlier starts as well. This does eliminate the staff day then on election day that we discussed the last time. However, the trade-off of starting late seemed to make sense to everyone. The only other real change, the breaks were the same as what we brought in the previous draft. Spring break, same location. Fall break, same location. Still 3 weekends in winter break. All of those remain unchanged. The one piece that changed a bit is that graduation would be slated for a week after the last student day, as you see in May. Not unprecedented. It's been done before. Some respects gives a little bit of cushion for some of those that might be sprinting to the finish line and need the little extra time. So it can work in the favor as well of some of our seniors. So I think it's a pretty clean calendar. You can't get much cleaner than a 90-90 split on your semesters. So that's another thing that cleaned up in this draft. So there's exactly 90 days in each semester. So happy to bring this to you for approval this evening, knowing that school calendars is, I don't know if it's a 50-50 split, but some like them, some don't. But kudos to Mr. Martin. It's not easy. You only have 180 days to work with and holidays to work around. So it's a tough process. So thank you, Mr. Martin, for your hard work on this.
Yes, thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adopt the 2024-25 calendar as presented?
All motion.
Mr. Hendricks, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Clausen. A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Good job, Mr. Martin.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We will have a printable version on the website tomorrow for the refrigerators around the district. So I will commit that to our team. We'll get this posted tomorrow for everyone. Thank you very much.
Last item of business is the request approval of Harney overnight trip to Camp Tecumseh.
So this is a typical trip, fourth grade, November 6th, 7th. The rest of the information is in your details here.
Do we have a motion to approve this overnight trip to Camp Tecumseh for Harney?
I'll motion.
Mrs. Jones, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hendricks? Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's all for items on the agenda. Next meeting is November 21st. We do have a work session and a special session on the 8th as well. So with that, we will adjourn.